Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. The Sorrow of Omega's Broken Heart. Episode 27. Chapter 350. Reject Ron. I want to confess to you. Delilah, I like you. Delilah was shocked. She stared at Ron as if he said something she had never imagined. Ron watched her expression and became nervous. He waved his hand in front of her face. Are you listening to me? He asked her. Delilah did not reply but only stared at him with a confused face. What happened, Delilah? Are you okay? Delilah stood up and said, What are you saying, Ron? You are just my friend. We are friends, right? Then how can you say that? Ron stood up too. He shook his head. Delilah, yes, we are friends. But friendship is one of the steps of likeness. Then someday it turned into love. Delilah stepped back when she heard that. What was he saying? Friendship was a step of love? Then what Havana said to her was true. Even Everett told her that Havana was right. So that meant they were really a couple? Delilah forgot about the current situation and thought about Everett. I am a slave who can't fall for her master. He loves someone else. Did he kill his mate because he wanted to be with Havana? But Havana was not living with him when I went to the forest. How can he accept that Havana and he? Delilah. Hey! Delilah came out of her thoughts and looked at Ron. Ron, I am sorry. What? I am sorry that I don't like you more than a friend. I always see you as my friend and I will always do that. Ron was taken aback by the sudden confession. But I have liked you since the day I met you. Delilah, I know you saw me as a friend. But we can take time, you know. I am sorry if I offended you. But we should take time. Time can change everything. Delilah shook her head. No, Ron. I can't. I think I should go now. Ron frowned. Why are you running away from me? You are an unmated Omega. I am sure you haven't found your mate yet, otherwise, he would have marked you already. Then why are you resisting me? What is the reason that you can't accept me? Delilah did not know how she could make Ron understand her situation. She could feel Ron. Ron was feeling the same as she felt whenever it ignored her. But she had someone in her mind. Was that the same reason with Everett? Tell me, Delilah. Delilah took a deep breath. There is someone I love, Ron. You love someone? Ron was stunned. Is he, Dr. Connor? He asked. Delilah raised her brows. What? No. He is just a friend. I am not talking about him. Then who is he? Ron asked as he stepped forward. Delilah shook her head. She could not tell him who she was talking about. What would she say? She fell for the Leakin everyone always talked about? I can't tell you. She murmured as she looked away. Ron saw how uncomfortable she looked. So he calmed himself down and said, Are you telling me the truth? Or you are saying this because you don't want to break my heart? I swear, I am telling you the truth. Ron nodded his head. He patted her head and Delilah was startled but retained herself to step back. Since you already have someone in your heart, then what can I do? I have no way then. He said sadly. I am sorry, Ron. It's okay. That's nothing. Remember always. If you need me anytime, just come to me. I will be there for you. Thank you, Ron, for understanding me. We are still friends, right? He chuckled and asked. Yes. Ron smiled and left her alone in that place. Delilah sat on the seat and stared at the forest for some time. She laughed at herself. Although she told Ron about her feelings, she knew she would never have Everett. I miss you, Mom. She mumbled. 1 hour passed and Delilah was still sitting on the bench. A few women were passing on the road. They saw her and came towards her. Dear, what are you doing at this time? It's already dark, go back to your home. That time Delilah realized that she had been sitting there for a long time and it was evening. Delilah stood up and told the ladies that she was just going back to her home. Delilah started to walk toward the forest and glanced everywhere to see if someone was watching her or not. She entered the forest and started to walk. She was so lost in her thoughts that she could not concentrate on the path and flipped over a branch of a tree. She fell to the ground and hissed in pain. When she stood up she felt pain in her right foot. She touched her foot and felt wet. She understood that her foot was scratched. She sighed and strolled forward. It took time to reach the wooden house because of the pain in her foot. When she reached there, she saw Everett standing beside a tree. Delilah looked at him. The wooden house's light fell on his face. She could see the calm Everett. Delilah forgot to step forward. She stared at him. He came to her slowly and asked, "Where were you?" Delilah looked away from him and was about to reply when he asked, "What happened to your leg?" She could see a frown between his brows. She would have thought that he was concerned for her if they had not had the conversation last night. "I fell on the ground while coming here." Everett stared at her foot and nodded at her. "Let's go, you need to heal it." Delilah was surprised. "Heal? But stop talking. I will heal you." Delilah was surprised by his words. He wanted to heal her physical pain? What about the pain in her heart? She saw him walking to the house and she followed him behind while looking at his back. He doesn't want me to fall in love with him, at the same time, he doesn't want me to escape from him. Heal her leg. He doesn't want me to fall in love with him, at the same time, he doesn't want me to escape from him. They entered the house. Everett did not look relaxed. Delilah looked around the house and felt that no one had come to the house. Did Havana not come here today? She thought. Everett looked at her and said, "Go to the bathroom and take a shower." "Didn't he tell me that he would heal me? Did he change his mind?" Delilah only nodded and went upstairs. She took a shower and went out of the bathroom. She saw him sitting on the bed. Delilah walked slowly and said, "I am going to make dinner. First sit on the bed," he ordered with a cold voice. Delilah did not argue and went to sit on the bed beside him. Everett turned to her and looked at her right foot. The scratches were not simple. A small piercing could be seen. It caused the blood to rush out a few minutes ago. He stood up and bent one knee as he sat on the floor. Delilah was startled. "What are you doing?" Everett ignored her question and touched her right leg. "What, can you shut up?" he yelped as he glared at her. "But where is the potion that would heal me? Didn't I tell you that I would heal you?" "But She could not help but moan when Everett's lips touched her foot. "Everett, what are you doing?" she gulped and asked him. He did not reply to her. He focused on her leg. His hands were wrapped around her ankle to keep her leg unmoved. She felt his tongue moving on her wound. His lips brushed her leg. She took deep breaths. It was painful. At the same time, she felt a different sensation. It was very intimate to see him licking her leg. It was just a shocking thing for her to see. Because when they spent the night together, she could not see him because of the blindfold. Now she could see him rolling his tongue over her leg. He kept doing that for some time. The feeling of pain was removed and she started to feel pleasure. She gasped when she felt him kissing her leg. Everett. She moaned his name. Her mind lost its sense as it wanted more from him. Her body wanted him to touch her everywhere. He didn't stop and his eyes were looking at her face. It looked like he was doing something deep to her. He stood up without leaving her leg. That made her upper body fall onto the bed. Her back pressed against the bed and she stared at Everett. His hand moved up to her leg from her ankle, which shifted her long dress up. She felt goosebumps all over her body. What was he doing to her? She bit her lower lip and stared at him with a pair of shy eyes. Her right thigh was exposed to him. His hand was on her thigh. Why did you come back late? His profound voice shook her from inside. Delilah realized what she was doing or thinking. She immediately tried to sit up but his grip tightened. She wheezed. She felt pain in her thigh which was grabbed by him. You are hurting me, master, she said with a cold voice. She did not want to talk to him, not after what he told her last night. She did not know why she fell into his trap a few minutes ago. Leave my leg. Everett glared at her. Where were you? Delilah grabbed his wrist and pushed his hand from her leg. Then she sat up and fixed her clothes. I was out for some time. I forgot about the time. He didn't move but bent toward her. Delilah felt her heartbeat become fast. She gulped when he came close to her face. He sniffed and said, You smell fresh now. Otherwise, I was smelling another man from you. Delilah's eyes widened. Another man? He grimaced at her. Weren't you with another man? Delilah was frightened that he could smell others. That was my boyfriend. Delilah shook her head. No, he is my friend. You go to the hospital not to do work but to make friends. Delilah lowered her head. Why can't I make friends when you have your friends? She said in her mind, not in front of him. No answer. Why can't I make friends? Now you want to socialize with others, I see. He moved from her and stood straight. Stay away from that man, he uttered and turned around to leave the bedroom. She got mad at him when she heard him. She stood up and asked, Why would I stay away from him? Why can't I make friends? You also have friends. You even have a lover. Then why can't I make one? She heard a growl. He turned to her. Don't dare to talk about this again. You can't go anywhere. You are living here and I caged you here. You can't escape, I told you. Delilah saw his black eyes turn orange in anger. Why don't you want me to leave? Because you are my slave. Delilah scoffed, which made him infuriated. You also know that. I am a slave just by name. You never touched me after my heat, but did you touch me before that night? Then how can you call me your slave? Everett was silent while glaring at her. Delilah gathered all her courage. She wanted to talk to him about her heart. She could not live like this anymore. She stepped forward and dared to hug him. I also don't want to go away from you. I have no intention of escaping from you. I know you think of me as just a slave, but I want to tell you about my feelings. She raised her head and looked up at him. He looked stunned by her words and actions. She smiled at him and confessed, Will you give us a chance? Because I love you, Everett. I really love you a lot. Full moon, will you give us a chance? Because I love you, Everett. I really love you a lot. Everett stared at her. Delilah thought he would agree with her, but she was wrong. She felt a hard push. "How dare you say that?" he yelled at her. Delilah was startled. "I was just telling you what I feel for you. Shut up. You cannot feel anything for me. In fact, no one can feel anything for me. Didn't I tell you not to think like this?" His orange eyes were piercing into her eyes. They looked like killers. She felt he would kill her any time with his eyes. "Why are you saying this?" Delilah said, but saw him leaving the room. She ran behind him downstairs. "Everett, listen to me. Don't follow me," he shouted at her while walking forward. "No, I need to talk to you." Hearing her, he turned to her. "Today is the full moon. I will not come back tonight. You better stay inside this house. Otherwise, who knows when I will kill you." He left the house, leaving her alone. Delilah stared at the door. She wanted to follow him outside but did not want to make him more angry at her. She sat on the couch. When he was yelling at her a few minutes ago, his dangerous eyes somehow looked pitiful to her. Delilah thought about Everett's childhood. Grandma told her that he had been living there for 20 years. In those years, how did he pass his life here alone? His parents were still alive. Why did he have to stay here? It must be his rank. The way people were talking about him, it might make him sad. The way his face burned every time, it might feel painful. Delilah's tears streamed out of her eyes. She wanted to talk to him. She wanted to tell him that she would always be with him, to be with him, to take care of him. She thought about how Everett told her that Havana was right. "He was angry with me. That's why he told me that. If he really liked her like that, he would have told me about that tonight again." Delilah felt somehow relaxed. She felt there was a burden left on her chest. Delilah prepared dinner at night. What did he mean by not coming back tonight? Why? Today is the full moon. So what? What would happen? Will he go to the palace because of that? A full moon was a night when all the night creatures became very powerful and stronger. However, for an Omega, it was a dangerous night. Any mated or unmated Omega made wolves always hungry for them. They would not think about their mark until they had someone's really powerful wolf's mark on themselves. Being an Omega, Delilah did not know much about the full moon night. Because her step-parents did not let her go out of her house, so she could not learn much about it. When it was midnight, Delilah was sitting on the couch while looking outside from the glass windows. Suddenly, she heard a howl. It was a howl that was full of sorrows. Delilah stood up and peeked outside. She heard another howl. She felt a crack inside her heart. She went out of the house to find the lonely Leekan, who was howling in sadness. It was blowing her mind what the old lady told her that night. Delilah did not know where she was going, but she started to walk inside the forest. The howl stopped and was never heard again. Delilah shook her head. "Everett, what happened? Why are you howling?" she thought. She looked around and saw the whole forest was shining under the moonlight. She looked up at the moon. It was a full moon. The moon looked so beautiful at the same time as powerful with its full shine. Her eyes turned blue. She looked at both of her sides to find the way. She wanted to go to Everett. "Everett," she called his name loudly. She walked to the side she considered going. She walked for a while but she could not find him. "Where are you, Everett?" she said aloud and looked around. She did not know where she was going, but she did not stop walking. The forest was very big and unknown to her. She only knew the one way, which was to go to the village and come back to the wooden house. She remembered Havana had taken her somewhere. She did not know the way either. He might be there. She had to find him. She searched for him for a long time and felt tired. She stopped and took the support of a tree. She huffed for a while. "What are you doing here?" A deep voice impaled her ears. She immediately turned around and saw Everett so close to her face. "Everett, didn't I tell you not to come out?" She gulped. "I heard the howl." So. Under the moonlight his face was glowing. He looked more handsome than usual. His cheeks looked clean. It did not look like they had any scratches before. "I was missing you," she whispered. He looked into her eyes. "Go back before something happens," he whispered back. Delilah was stunned. For the first time she heard him talking in a lower tone. Delilah shook her head. "Everett, you are not alone. I am with you. Why did you howl like that? Are you feeling pain?" Everett moved back and turned around. "I cannot control more. I will shift anytime soon. So it's better if you go back." "It's okay, if you want to shift." He chuckled when he heard her. As if he was sad, he said, "You will faint again." Delilah shook her head numerous times. "I will not faint again. Because I love you the way you are." He turned to her. "Don't blame me that I didn't want you." Delilah nodded and heard a loud growl. Then she saw what everyone was afraid of. His real self once again. But this time it was more dangerous than before, which could shake anyone's consciousness. Lycanthropy. Everett's clean face started to change into the wild. His clear cheeks started to burn like coal. "Everett." Delilah whispered his name. The flames could be seen inside his orange eyes. His claws came out. His arms started to fill with black fur. He was shirtless. So Delilah could see the visible bloodlines in his upper bare body. "Look at me. This is me. A Lycan. The beast," he said as he looked at Delilah. His canines came out and he looked at the full moon. He growled loudly. Delilah stared at him. It was the creature everyone had been talking about. If she didn't love Everett, she would have fainted again. But tonight she did not feel anything like that. She calmly stared at him. "Everett." When she was about to get close to him, he growled at her and scratched a tree branch furiously. The marks of his claws were imprinted on the tree. Delilah felt that Everett was losing his mind. "Listen to me, Everett. Go away." He yelled at her, which she did not like. Why would she go away from him? "No. I am not going anywhere," she yelled back at him. He looked stunned. "Why are you not looking scared?" "Because I am not feeling scared of you, Everett," she retorted back and made her way to him. He shook his head. "You are just pretending to be brave." He let out and laughed. "No, I am not," she said and stopped in front of him. She touched his hands and he growled. "Please, don't get mad at me," she requested. "Why don't you go back? Didn't you tell me not to escape? How can I leave you after seeing yourself? I love you the way you are. You are just more powerful than other werewolves. It's not a bad thing but a plus point for you." "No." He pushed her hands and she stepped back. "This is not a plus point. For this." He pointed at himself, then continued, "For this rank, my father had to bear so many things. For this rank, I had to live my whole life alone. How can you say this is a plus point?" he asked while glaring at her. Delilah was shocked when he talked about his father. His father is a Lecan. Don't they call the king their Alpha King? Then what is he talking about? She was confused. Very confused. But the situation was not to think about anything else. Everett was getting out of control. You are not alone anymore. I am with you now, she said as she approached him again. He grabbed her arms. Why can't you understand? I don't want to understand anything, Everett. I know only one thing, that I love you. Who are you? Tell me truthfully. Is there someone who sent you to me? He asked while glaring at her. No. I chose to come to you on my own. It was our fate that made me come to you. Am I not looking harmful to you? Delilah shook her head. No, not anymore. I fell for you when I saw you, but after finding your true identity, my love never became a bit less. Love, love, love. You are going crazy, Della. Della. Did he give me a nickname? She had the bravery and lifted her hands. She then rested them on his neck and tiptoed. He was stunned when her lips touched his lips. Her soft lips brushed his rough ones and made them moist. It was a small peck. She glanced at his cheeks and wanted to touch them. But he grabbed her wrists. It's a curse, he muttered. Curse? Who cursed you? His eyes were fixed on her lips. A bad witch. How can you remove it? He moved away and shook his head. There is no way to remove it. What? Is it very painful? She asked as she stared at his cheeks. Not much. Delilah knew he was lying. If it was a curse, then it was surely an unbearable pain. She wanted to stop this. She wanted to remove the curse from him. She didn't realize it when she started to cry again. Why are you crying? He asked as he stared at her glossy eyes. I am feeling pain, she replied. His eyes turned back to black. His body became normal. Only her cheeks left marks. He came to her and grabbed her arms. Where? Did you fall somewhere while coming here? Delilah saw concern in his eyes. For the first time, he didn't hide his emotions from her. Why don't you speak? He asked as he searched her body to see where she got hurt. She held his hand and pressed his palm on her heart. Here, she whispered. He frowned but heard her again. I am feeling pain here. I don't want to live as your slave anymore. Because I felt pain when I saw you in pain. I want to share your pain. I want to be your life companion, Everett. Her eyes kept turning blue and black back and forth. It was a full moon, so no werewolf could resist it. Everett was a Lecan. Only a Lecan could control his shifting by his wish. There are so many things you don't know about me, Della. I want to know everything. I promise I will always be with you. I will never escape. I will never think about another man in my life. There will be only one name in my heart, and that's yours. You are digging your own grave. You have come to the beast and told him that you love him. Who gave you this courage? He asked as his hand stroked her arms. You. You gave me this courage. She again tried to touch his cheeks. This time he did not stop her, which surprised her. She caressed his cheeks with both of her thumbs. You are so handsome, but you said the beast is ugly. Because he is. No, he is the most handsome man I have ever seen. Everett stared at her. You know what you are doing and saying, right? I do. You want to be my life companion? Yes. Then you have to remember one thing. Delilah smelled a fear. What would be the one thing he would talk about? What? I can never mark you as my mate. Kiss, I can never mark you as my mate. Delilah almost lost her breath. Why? Her hands on his cheeks trembled. He smiled at her sadly. I told you, it is not easy. She took a deep breath and replied, why can't you mark me? He held her wrists softly and moved them from his cheeks. There is a reason that I can't tell you right now. Delilah tried to gather herself up when she saw his soft eyes. She knew it was not easy at all. How could she live without a mark? How could she live without a mate bond? The mate bond was like something everyone wanted, whether it was by fate or by choice. She shuddered inside. Just when she thought all the distance between them was over and she could be his mate to stay with him forever, he said something that broke her totally. What would she do now? She had to live like an unmated Omega. What about her wolf? How could her wolf live without a mark? I can't leave you, so if I need to live as an unmated Omega, then okay. It is not something that I can change. She said to him. Everett looked stunned. She was making him feel like that again and again. Besides her expression, he knew she was not that strong to take whatever he had just said to her. He looked at the girl in front of him carefully. Her beautiful long eyelashes fluttered and she looked at him with her innocent eyes. How could a fragile woman want to be with him willingly? From the first time he saw her, he felt strange in his heart. He did not kill her and let her stay alive in his forest because he did not want to hurt her. When she said she wanted to go and shift to the village, he got angry. Because he did not want her to leave him. For the first time, the lonely Leekan felt afraid to be alone when she talked about leaving him. It was a bitter truth that he liked to stay with her. He liked to see her sleeping face when he went out of the house in the morning. He liked the feeling of protecting her. He liked it when he told her not to cook for him but she still cooked for him. He liked to be with her. Unknowingly, living with her became his obsession. You are strange, Della. He said to her and pulled her towards him by grabbing her waist. Delilah was shocked when he suddenly pulled her to him. He lowered his head and kissed her cheek. I had never thought you would become this brave one day. Delilah forgot what he told him when she felt his lips on her cheek. Her cheeks reddened. She looked at him shyly. If you want to be mine, then you will be. Before Delilah could think, he smashed his lips on hers. She felt him kissing her passionately. She was in a daze that she forgot to respond to the kiss. Ah, she moaned. She could feel his touch. After kissing her for a long time, he looked at her. Will you feel scared if I shift? Delilah shook her head. No. Everett moved back and shifted. Delilah stared at the giant black wolf. She stepped closer toward him. You are so big. Wow. It was funny that a few days ago she was feeling terrible after seeing this wolf, but now it looked beautiful to her. She lifted her hand and caressed his fur. So soft. She murmured. She saw him, his eyes closing, and he bent his head to come closer to her face. She rubbed his neck and smiled. Such a good wolf. She saw him taking steps back. She frowned. Does it get angry? She asked herself in her mind. Everett looked at her and turned around as if telling her to follow him. Delilah followed him behind. She saw him walking like a king. They were so right. He is the king of this forest. He stopped in a place. Delilah felt it was a familiar place. Everett went to a tree and sat under the tree. That time Delilah realized that it was the same place where she saw him pouncing on the tree. The moonlight helped her to recognize her place. Delilah ran towards him and sat beside him. Everett, I remember this place. Isn't it the place where you put out your anger? She looked behind the tree and leaned against it. This is the tree where you punch hard. Why were you doing that? She felt Everett's wolf stare at her. She blushed. Everett put his head on her lap and closed his eyes. Delilah was stunned. She put her hand on his head and stroked the fur with her fingers. Anyone could be afraid of the giant black wolf with orange eyes. But Delilah was not feeling fearful a little bit tonight. She knew who he was. She loved him. People called him a beast. He was her beast. Delilah could not realize when she had fallen asleep while leaning against the tree. When she opened her eyes, she was in bed. She sat up and wondered if she was dreaming. She remembered last night and thought about when he took her back to the house. She went to the bathroom and freshened up. When she came downstairs, she saw Everett sharpening wooden stakes. Good morning. Everett paused and looked at her. Delilah felt nervous because she was wearing one of the dresses that Amanda sent her. She saw him scanning her dress and then her face. Good morning. He replied and continued to do his work. Delilah prepared breakfast and called him. He was already done with what he was doing. He sat at the table. Then they had their breakfast without any conversation. When Delilah was done washing, she told him that she was leaving for the hospital. Wait. He stopped her. He grabbed her hand, which made Delilah's cheeks turn red. Yes. Come with me. Where? He took her out of the house and replied, let me show you where I always go. His secret place. Let me show you where I always go. Delilah was surprised. Was he going to take her to see his secret places? She nodded at him. She saw him taking her some other way where she had never gone before. After some time of walking, Delilah saw a few people from afar. She gasped and grabbed his wrist. He stopped and turned around to her. What happened? Some people are there. She pointed at the side of him. She remembered how some men attacked him. There is nothing to be scared of. He assured her and pulled her with him to that side. When they went there, all the men bowed to Everett. Delilah looked shocked. They glanced at her and looked stunned. She is Delilah. My woman. Always remember her face and never try to harm her. She will be here any time from today. No one is allowed to talk to her or hurt her. Delilah blushed when she heard that. Suddenly, the man who had thrown the stake at her before came to her and asked for forgiveness. Please forgive this poor man. Because of my stupidity, you almost had to lose your life. Delilah did not know what she should say. Should she say that it was okay because she did not die? The man saw her silence and bowed to her. We were just training that time, we didn't know Prince had a woman. If we knew that, we would stop before you got up. It's okay. Delilah said and thought about something. She turned to Everett, who was glaring at the man. You were training with them? Others can also come to this forest? I thought you didn't let others enter here. Everett gestured to the men to continue their training and pulled Delilah to the opposite side. Delilah almost forgot that he was still holding her hand. They can come because they are my men. I have my men everywhere. They can come to meet me and I train them to become more powerful. How can I always forget that he is a prince? She thought. She glanced at his abdomen over the cloth. You got hurt. It healed soon. But still, at that moment, you felt the unbearable pain. He let go of her hand and walked a few steps forward. He looked around the trees and said, it was just a habit to get the pain inside yourself. If you can't practice taking a beat, then how will you win over your enemy? Delilah frowned at him. Enemy? Who is your enemy? He turned around. You ask too many questions, Della. She nodded her head. I am a nosy girl, don't you know that? He chuckled and Delilah felt her fastest heartbeat. He can smile too. Everett saw her staring at him. So he cleared his throat and said, you should go now. You are getting late. Delilah nodded and turned around. She walked a few steps but stopped. Everett frowned. She turned around and ran towards him. She pecked his lips and ran away hurriedly. Everett stared at her back while watching her running. He thought, have I really gotten a chance by fate to call someone mine? The following days went really well. Delilah became very close to Everett. He now started to talk with her and eat together with her. They spent the nights talking. Delilah always talked to him about how she spent the whole day in the hospital. She got to know many things about him too. He told her that he came to live in the village when he turned 6 years old. Delilah was shocked when she heard him and hugged him that he had to stay in the village at such a time when he was only 6. But he told her that it was his decision to stay there. He never talked about his father or mother. He never conversed about his brother. He just said that he cared for his grandmother because that old lady had watched him since childhood. She managed to make the wooden house for him. She always sent royal or expensive clothes, but he never wore them. She arranged everything to make him educated. But when he turned 20, that was the time everything changed and people started to talk about him. Delilah did not ask him more because she did not want to make him feel uncomfortable. Today Delilah went to the hospital and Everett walked with her to the very close side of the forest. She was very happy today. She entered the hospital and greeted everyone happily. You look pleased today. What happened? Lily asked. It's nothing, Miss Winters. Delilah replied and went to change her dress. She went out and saw Lily standing with a report. This patient is now totally fine. She is going to be discharged today. I want you to instruct her about her medicine. I wrote all the medicine in the report. All you have to do is just tell her when and how much she should take them. Delilah took the report from her hand and looked over it. Okay, Miss Winters. Lily nodded and stared at her. Is there something else, Miss Winters? Delilah asked. Lily shook her head. There is nothing. I just wanted to ask if you are okay with your boyfriend. Delilah nodded at her. We are really happy now. It feels like I am living in a dream. He is the most perfect man for me. That's good. What about the mark? Delilah looked at Lily. For the first time, she heard her stuttering. However, Lily always asked her about the marks and mating bond. Is she still feeling insecure about Connor? Delilah thought. We will think about it. Delilah let out and ignored the matter. She then left the changing room. Lily turned around when Delilah left. There was worry in her eyes. A man came and knocked on the door. She saw him because the door was open. You. The man entered and gave Lily a golden envelope. Is it that urgent that you have to come to the hospital? Lily asked angrily. Then she took the envelope and read the letter inside it. I am thinking about visiting the village. Hope you are working well. Get ready with all the information. He will kill you. I am thinking about visiting the village. Hope you are working well. Get ready with all the information. Lily's hands started to tremble. She instantly put the envelope inside the bag. She glanced at the man. Go away fast before Dr. Connor catches you. Otherwise, he will kill you. The man nodded and left. Lily was sweating in fear. What will I do now? She asked herself and left the room hurriedly. Meanwhile, Delilah went to her shift. She became a well-known nurse for her sweet behavior and beautiful appearance. When it was break time, Delilah went to the canteen and saw Ron. Hi. Hi, Delilah. Ron never talked rudely to her although she broke his heart. As he said, they were still friends. How is your day going? Ron asked as he ordered food for him. Good. Everything is going well. Delilah replied and ordered her food too. They sat at a table with their food and started to talk. You look happy nowadays. What happened? Well, nothing. Delilah could not tell others that Everett and she were living happily together just like a married couple, just like mates. So she always ignored that fact and tried to explain it differently. What about the man you love? Ron asked. Delilah smiled. I think he is in love with me too. We are together now. Ron looked away from her and nodded. That's good. After a while he asked, who is he by the day? Is he someone I know? What if I say I fall for the beast? She said jokingly and chuckled. But Ron paused and looked at her. It's not funny, Delilah. You cannot say this type of thing that easily. Delilah stopped eating and asked, why? What's wrong with that? We all know about him. He is a beast in disguise. He might be old and ugly. He is dangerous too. He is not like others. People of our village and the other side of the forest all felt scared of him and told their kids about the horror stories about him. He is no match for you. And you can't tell these types of jokes so easily. Delilah became silent. She felt anger rising inside her heart. How could he say that about Everett? All the people have misconceptions about him. And no, he is not old and ugly but a very handsome man. About danger, he might be dangerous to others, but not to me. She told herself. After lunch, Delilah went to the patient whose report was in Delilah's hand. She entered and saw the Omega woman. Hello, Aunt. Delilah greeted. In those days, she came and was admitted to the hospital many times. She had some problems with her wolf and her body. So that was why she needed to be admitted there countless times. Whenever Lily checked her, Delilah had to assist Lily and meet the woman. Hello Delilah, how are you? I am fine. Looks like you are fine too. Delilah said and smiled as she waved the report in her hand. She told the woman about her medicine. You have to take this 2 times a day after your meals. Don't forget to eat your meal timely. And this is before breakfast. I hope you will never forget to drink the potion in time. I will take care of everything. Delilah nodded. You are getting discharged today. Hope you get well soon. The woman smiled and thanked her. When Delilah thought about leaving the room, the woman held her hand. Can you sit here for a while? Delilah thought for a moment and then nodded. Are you still with him? Delilah was surprised. Aunt, it's time for no, tell me. Are you still with him? Delilah looked away and nodded. The woman frowned. But why? Delilah did not like the question. Why not? My child, you should stay away from him. You are a nice girl. He will ruin you. Delilah stood up. Sorry Aunt, I know you have some issue with him. But you cannot talk about him like that. You don't know him. And this is a hospital, you cannot talk about my personal matters like this. You are afraid that anybody will hear you, aren't you? Even if anyone hears me, I am not afraid of anyone. I love him and will never leave him," she replied confidently. Delilah was not scared of anyone. She did not care what others thought about her. Who would care? The main doctor was Everett's best friend. Don't fall for his charm. He will never mark you, he has his own plan. Delilah narrowed her eyes. She was about to reply when she heard another voice. You are so right. He has another plan. I am thinking if killing you is his next plan, then what would you do? Delilah turned her head to the door and saw Connor. He smiled at Delilah and looked behind her. He glared at the woman. Connor. Surprise after seeing me here? Behind me you were brainwashing my friend's woman? Nice try. The woman shook her head. I didn't try to brainwash her. She should know the truth. Connor stepped towards the woman. The woman looked scared but stayed unmoved. What if I tell him about your statements? What will happen to you? He asked and chuckled. Tell him to leave my brother. He is caging him inside the forest. Tell him to set him free. I will never come in front of his woman again. Delilah was listening to the conversation without saying a single word. Your brother? He is just paying for what his wife did. No. It was not even his fault. Really? Then you don't know your brother. He was blind in love. If you have a chance to meet him, you should ask him. The woman shook her head like a mad woman. You are just saying this because she is here. Delilah broke the silence. I think I am mature enough to think about my life, thank you. The woman shook her head. He will kill you just like he killed his mate. He will make your fate the same as his mate. He will endanger your life. Safika. Delilah looked at the woman and said, take your medicine carefully. Thanks for your information. Then Delilah left the cabin. Connor came behind her. Don't listen to her. She is just angry at him because of her brother. Delilah nodded. I can understand. But why doesn't he set her brother free? Should I talk to him? No. Delilah stopped and turned to him. Why? It's because of that man's mate. His mate gave Everett curses. Now he is paying for it. Delilah raised her brows. Can you tell me about it more, Connor? She asked softly. Connor nodded at him. Though it was a confidential matter of Everett, since he showed her his secret places and called her his woman, then she had a right to know about him. Let's go somewhere else to talk. We cannot talk here. He replied and looked around them. Doctors and nurses were passing while bowing at him. Okay. Delilah agreed and they went to the park that merged with the hospital. A few kids were playing there. Delilah looked at them and smiled. Everett was very small when he came to the forest. I saw him first when my father used to go to the wooden house to educate him. Delilah was surprised. You are very close to him then. Of course. Not only I, but also Jack, and Luke, we three are very close to him. Jack's father was the beta of the current Alpha King. And Luke, he was an orphaned boy who met us out of the blue. But not everyone was Everett who could live in the forest. How was he when he was a kid? Delilah asked, as she really wanted to know about Everett's childhood. A very aggressive boy. Connor said and chuckled. What about his father? Delilah asked. She remembered that he had told her once that he was like his father. Connor was watching the kids and talking to her, but when she asked about Everett's father, he turned his head to her. How do you know about his father? Delilah could see confusion in his eyes. He told me that he is like his father. Connor stared at her as if he was thinking something, then he shook his head. I am not in the place to tell you about his family. Delilah was taken aback. She knew how Everett hated his family and how his family disgusted him. There might be something really big behind all of this. However, she always ignored them and tried to make Everett comfortable with her without asking anything. She did not want to break the special bonding between them by asking him what he did not want to talk about. But I can tell you about his mate. Delilah's eyes widened. You will? Culler nodded his head. 6 years ago, a girl named Safika came to Everett's life. Delilah felt somehow jealous when she heard that. But she had to continue listening. One day, Everett was sitting under a tree close to the pack beside the forest and felt some strange smell. A girl entered the forest and asked him about the way. He told her to go away, but she did not listen to him. She passed him and came back to him at night. When Everett saw she did not leave the forest, he got angry. Because he knew she was his mate. But his mate pretended that she did not know about it because she was not 18 years old then. She was about to turn 18 soon. She told him that she liked how he was stay alone in the forest and she was very interested in him. Everett did not hurt her since she was his mate. But he did not have any plan to mark her either. After she left the forest, she came back 2 months later. She told him that she could feel his scent, she could feel that he was her mate. She looked happy to him and he did not break her heart by rejecting her. Whenever she asked about their mating, he avoided her. One day, he saw her talking with the lead witch. She was very powerful and used to teach others her witchcraft. Everett got to know that she was one of the witch students. The witch said that Safika was the best girl for Everett and they can make a great couple since she already knew about Everett living there. However, when Everett showed his original self to Safika, she tried to run away. Everett wanted to talk to her but got to know that she was a traitor. Delilah frowned. A traitor? Yeah, a traitor. She was with someone Everett really didn't like. She planned against Everett from the start. In fact, she had come here with some motive against Everett, not because she wanted him as her mate. Delilah thought about what if Safika succeeded with her plan, what would have happened to Everett. Everett did not like traitors. He trusted in the wrong girl. That night he did not show any sympathy for her. He killed her without thinking twice. Delilah gulped as she thought about the scene as it played in her mind. She felt goosebumps when she thought Everett had killed his mate. Wasn't it painful for him to kill his mate? Of course, it was. He howled in pain. He was a Leakin and his mate could give him inner peace. His howl grabbed others out of the forest. In fact, the lead witch came to see if he was okay or not. But when she arrived, she saw that her favorite student was lying on the ground dead beside the giant wolf. She got mad at Everett and cursed him that whenever he shifted, he would have to feel pain. His body parts would burn and only fire could be seen from him. Delilah felt so sad inside her. She was feeling pain in her heart that Everett had to take the curse. Poor Everett! What would he do? He was so alone. Even his family was not with him. Connor shook his head. He hates his family. He has his other purposes. What? Connor replied in a lower tone, he is planning for a war. Bathroom romance in the kingdom, a man was breaking things inside his bedroom. How can that beast get a woman again? He shouted in anger. Just a few more days. Then I will manage that woman too. No one can resist me. I can turn anyone's woman into mine. He said while grabbing the silver wine glass tightly. Meanwhile, Delilah went back to the forest with Connor. He said he would go to meet Everett. He did not tell her more about the war. War? Why is he planning to do such a thing? I have never seen any war in my life. What if something happens to him? She was really worried about Everett. They reached the wooden house and saw Everett was not there. He may be in his training again. Delilah sighed and glanced at the way that Everett took her today. Then let's go there. Connor said simply. Me? She pointed at herself. She knew Everett told others that she could go there anytime, but what if he got angry? Don't think too much and let's go. What if you lose your way another time? So let me check if you know the way properly or not. Delilah chuckled and nodded at him. Let's go. Delilah headed to the way where Everett had taken her. Connor followed behind her. When Delilah was close to the place, she heard the sounds of rushing. She went near and saw Everett was training others. Delilah's eyes fell on his bare chest. He was a man full of muscles and abs. She could understand that all of his life, he only trained himself. Everett's eyes met her eyes and she looked away. Everett stopped training and looked at his men. You should go back now. Come tomorrow at any time. Because you don't have much time. As you wish, my prince. They said in unison and bowed to him. Only 6-7 people. How will he win the war? She mumbled. She heard a whisper in her ear. Those few people are heads of our kingdom. Don't fall for their age, they are the future of the kingdom. Connor told her. She nodded and felt embarrassed that Connor heard her. When everyone was leaving, Everett saw Delilah and Connor whispering to each other. Looks like something is burning. A voice came to hear. Luke came with Jack. Everett frowned and did not look at them. Come on, why are you looking grim? Do you want to kill someone? Jack asked Everett and then glanced at Connor. Connor gulped when he heard Jack. He immediately moved from Delilah and lifted his hands. Bro, I am neat and clean. Everett did not reply and walked the way of the wooden house. Delilah watched him not give a glance at her. She pouted while following him. Hello, Delilah. I heard you became Everett's woman. Luke asked. Delilah blushed and did not know what to reply. Are you expecting her to reply yes? Jack asked. She must be really happy. Connor said and smirked at Delilah since he knew how she felt about Everett. Everett was silent all the way, which made Delilah nervous. Did I do something again? She thought. They reached the wooden house. Everett went directly to the bedroom. Delilah told Everett's friends to sit, she would take a quick shower and then she would cook something for everyone. Don't worry, you can take a nap also. We just came here to talk about something to Everett. Delilah smiled at them and went to the bedroom. When she entered the bedroom, she saw Everett was not there. He may be taking a shower. She said herself and took out a dress, then waited for Everett to come out. When Everett came out, she smiled at him. I was waiting for you. Everett looked at her. Why? Delilah was taken aback. I wanted to ask that what? Are you upset somehow for any reason? He shook his head. His eyes were dark. Then are you angry? Go and take a shower. He said and took out a shirt from the cabinet. Delilah realized that she was so busy looking at his handsome face that she forgot he was shirtless all the time. When he wore a white shirt it gave him an ethereal look. Delilah nodded and went to the bathroom. She was too careless to lock the door. She was thinking about why Everett was behaving like that. She was about to open her dress when the bathroom door opened. She gasped when she saw Everett. He closed the door and stepped towards her. What happened? She asked as she tried to know why he had suddenly come there. When she saw he was looking mad and coming towards her, she stepped back and her back pressed against the shower. Unexpectedly, the water dripped down to her body and she flinched. Everett stopped in front of her and his white shirt also got wet. "You asked me if I was angry, right?" he said with a cold voice. Delilah nodded her head while trying to see him clearly under the water drops of the shower. She felt him coming closer to her and his body pressed toward her body. His hand went behind her and he stopped the shower. She gulped. In those days, they never got intimidated because Everett was giving her time. He did not want her to feel afraid of seeing his eyes or face when they became intimate. So he never touched her but let her try to understand him. However, now Everett's body was pressed against her body. She felt tingling in her lower abdomen. Everett's nose touched her cheek and went near her ear. "I don't like it when you get close to another man." Delilah was stunned. "But Connor was just talking about you." "I know." He whispered and took her earlobe into his mouth. She rested her hands on his chest and clutched his shirt when he bit her earlobe. "Everett." He ran his hands around her waist. "Though he is my friend, I still didn't like it. I am the only one who you can get close with." Delilah bit her lips when she felt him kissing her neck. It was a feeling that she wanted to feel again and again. They were so close to each other. Her hand went to his neck and another one went to grab his hair. She lightly caressed his hair when he was kissing her neck. "They are downstairs." She retained herself from letting out a moan. "So?" he asked while kissing. "They will hear us." He moved a little and looked at her. "I don't care." His thumb caressed her lips. But he didn't kiss her. She went close to his face but he moved. He smirked at her. "I think I should give you a punishment." "Punishment?" He came close to her chest and kissed over her dress. "Everett." She moaned his name again. His hands touched the dress's front button, which was in the middle of her chest. He unbuttoned the upper half of her dress. She looked away from him in shyness. She wanted to hide herself because she could not take the way Everett looked at her. She was feeling shy. He stroked them with his knuckles. She closed her eyes and let him do whatever he wanted to do with her. If letting him touch her was her punishment, then she was happy to take that punishment willingly. Unexpectedly, he bent his head. She hissed at the feeling. "Everett." She could not help but moan his name loudly. She felt pain. Her hands pat his shoulders to move away. But he did not move. He wrapped his arms around her waist and pulled her closer. In a few seconds, the pain was replaced by pleasure. Delilah could not believe that it was even possible. He was biting her. Then how could she enjoy that? He moved away and she could see his canines. He was looking at his bite mark with his orange eyes. She was no longer afraid of his appearance. He ran his tongue over his canines and smirked at her. He came close to her face again and licked where he had just bitten. Delilah thought wolves could only bite their mates' necks, because they were not bloodsuckers. However, this lonely Lycan knew many things to give her pleasure. She saw his eyes turn black. "You will remember my warning. Because I left my mark on your chest which is very close to your heart." Delilah was speechless. She caressed his cheeks and cupped them. "I will never cheat you. You don't have to be jealous of others." He stared at her for a few seconds then crashed his lips into her delicate ones. He kissed her roughly. Their bodies collided with the shower and water started to drip again. They both kissed each other in the shower. Everett licked her lips and moved away. "I am going to change. You take a shower and come out, okay?" he said and stroked her cheek. She smiled at him shyly. He turned around and smiled, which she could not notice. Delilah saw him leaving the bathroom. She touched her lips, then her chest where he bit her. Everything is going so well between us. I just hope nothing unfavorable will happen in our happy life, Everett. Friendly discussion. When Delilah came out of the shower, she saw that Everett was talking with his friends downstairs. She hurriedly made 5 cups of tea and some snacks for them. She placed the tray of tea and snacks. Everyone took their cups and started to drink tea. Delilah sat beside Everett. She did not look at him. How are your days going in the hospital? Luke asked Delilah. Good. I am trying my best to do my job. Delilah replied. She is a very good nurse. Like an intern, she has learned many things. Connor praised her. Delilah smiled at him and thanked him. Everett, what do you think? How much more time do we need to take? Jack asked. 1 more month. Everett replied and leaned back against the couch. Finally, I can go to the town and join that hospital. Connor said excitedly. Delilah was confused about what they were discussing. She was naive in that discussion. But she paid attention to it fully. Don't forget who you are, and what your rank is. Your responsibility is mainly serving the authorities, Everett reminded Connor. I know. But I am a doctor too. I have to know more about other diseases. I want all the people to live healthily. Everyone is talking about the coronation which is going to be held soon. Luke said. Hearing that, Everett frowned. When? The date is not fixed yet. But soon the king will announce it. Jack let out, yeah, you are right. Everyone is talking about it. In fact, my parents are also going there. The king is very clever. He is inviting the pillars of the kingdom beforehand. Delilah glanced at Everett. She did not know why his friends were talking like that about his family. She thought she would ask him about it. When it was dinner time, Delilah prepared dinner for them. Everett's friends were happy that Delilah cooked for them. They praised her after having dinner. We are leaving now. Delilah smiled at them. They left the house, leaving Delilah and Everett alone. Delilah sighed. She went to the kitchen and headed to the sink to wash the dishes. A minute later, a pair of strong arms wrapped around her waist. She was sniffed by Everett's sudden action. You almost scare me to death. He rested his head on her neck and said, wait for a month. You don't have to work anymore. What do you mean? She asked and turned her head to his face. He stared at her lips, but then he remained himself and replied, you don't have to work after that. Delilah was thinking about why he was telling her that. Can I ask you something? Ask. What war were your friends talking about? She felt his muscles toughened. He slowly unwrapped his arms around her waist. You don't have to worry about it. You will be here at that time. No one will harm you. Delilah was done washing dishes. She wiped her hands with a fresh cloth and turned around to him. If you are uncomfortable, then you don't have to talk about it. Everett looked at her and sighed. Let's go to bed. Delilah nodded and grabbed his arm. She did not know where she gathered up her courage to touch him suddenly. But after the night of the full moon, he never stopped her from touching him. In fact, Delilah stopped calling him master. She called him by his name without any fear. They lay down on the bed on their sides. Everett pulled her closer to his body and hugged her. My bonding with my family is not the same as others. His voice echoed in the dark room. Delilah put her head on his chest and asked, why did you come to this forest? Do you really like to stay here? It was not my wish. I was forced to stay here. Delilah narrowed her eyes and lifted her head to look up at him. Why? Who forced you to stay here? Everett looked at her and smiled. His knuckles caressed her chin. I am a beast. How can people want to be with me? He asked her with a lower tone. Delilah got angry. She sat up. Listen to me, you are a Leekan, not a beast. And I am here with you, right? I want to be with you. I will always be with you. I know. He whispered and pulled her over his chest. Everett slept while hugging her. The next morning, when Delilah went to the hospital, she made herself busy with the patients. Everyone in the hospital was doing their work. Lily was sitting in her chamber while thinking about something when suddenly she heard a knock on the door. Come in. A man came and said, he is waiting for you. Come to the village market side. Lily immediately stood up from her chair. He is already here. The man nodded and left. Lily gulped and went out of her chamber. She looked around. Then she headed to the village market. Lily came to a stall of fish. She glanced everywhere to find the person she had come there to meet. All of a sudden, her eyes met the man's eyes. She made her way to him and bowed. Crown Prince. Maverick looked at her and smiled. Lily. How are you? I am fine, my prince. You came here so suddenly. Suddenly? My man didn't give you my letter. Yes, my prince. But you said you would come soon, not today. And what if someone recognizes you here? No one knows me here. I came here in disguise. My clothes will only tell them that I am a mere merchant. Lily glanced at his clothes. He was indeed in a merchant's clothing. Now don't waste my time and notify me. What, my prince? Everything you know about her. He cheered and smirked. Lily looked worried. She lowered her head as if she was in conflict. Are you going to speak or not? Well. She is a good nurse. She held everything so fast and could attend many patients together. Oh, please. I didn't come here to get to know your monthly working report. I want to hear about her. What is she doing? How is her progress with that infamous beast? Lily was quiet for a while. What? You haven't got any single piece of information yet? How can you be so careless? Did you forget why I sent you to this village? Lily shook her head without saying anything. Don't tell me that you fell for one of them. Lily's body stiffened when she heard that. She loves him. She does not care if he marks her or not. She is happy with him. Maverick's eyes darkened. He looked like he would kill her anytime soon. But because of the villagers, he could not do that. Just go back to the hospital. And convince her to come here for some shopping. Shopping? Yeah, don't women always like shopping? Lily's eyes widened. She is not like that. She looks like a simple girl. Maverick glared at her. You know a crown prince can kill anyone by accusing any kind of law, right? So stop talking and do what you are told. Lily left for the hospital. She was working for Maverick. He sent her here to eye on Connor. Because he was close to Prince Everett. Lily knew about Everett though she never got to see him. Maverick told her about him before sending her here. In fact, when Connor called her to his chamber and told her that Delilah was with his friend, that time she got to know that Delilah was with Prince Everett. After some time, she got another mission from Maverick and that was trying to convince Delilah. She tried to convince her to leave Everett or force him to mark her. However, her every move went in vain. Delilah was living happily without Everett's mark. Delilah, she called Delilah when she saw her with a few nurses talking. "Yes, Miss Winters?" Delilah asked. She was just accomplished with her work. "Come with me." Lily grabbed her wrist and walked out of the hospital. "Miss Winters, where are you taking me? I have something important to buy. Can you please help with it? But I have to go back before it's dark." "No worries. I will let you go before the evening." Delilah thought for a moment and then agreed with her. Lily took her to the village market where villagers came to shop. Delilah had come here many times before. "Tell me, Miss Winters. What do you want to buy?" Lily took her to a stall of clothes and told her to select any dress. "It's my friend's birthday tomorrow. So I have to give her something." "Oh." Delilah looked at the designed dresses and thought about choosing the one with a red color. "I think red is good," she said and turned around. But she saw Lily was not there. She frowned and looked around. Where is she? She walked ahead and tried to find Lily. Suddenly, someone patted her shoulder, and a voice came to her ear. "Whom are you looking for, princess?" "Maverick, whom are you looking for, princess?" Delilah turned around. She was stunned as she took a step back. "You?" Delilah was shocked that the man who was in front of her was Everett's brother. "You cannot call your crown prince like this. You should greet him first. Then you need to talk to him calmly. Otherwise, I can kill you." Delilah was confused about what he was saying. Maverick chuckled and came close to her neck. "Let me tell you a secret." "I didn't mind." Delilah stepped back. "What are you doing?" "Just talking with you, I guess." "I don't want to talk to you." Delilah started to walk, but Maverick came in her way and stopped her by pulling her into a corner. "You cannot go like that. Once I finish, you can go." "What do you want to say?" Delilah asked. She was mad at him. She didn't forget how he insulted Everett that day in the palace. In fact, when he called himself Crown Prince, it reminded her of her mate. Didn't that man say that Maverick accepted his intention? That meant he permitted that man to make her his slave. How cheap-minded a person he is! Delilah scolded him in her mind. "Don't get mad. Your face can talk, you know. I have to go now." "Why? Is my brother caged you? I can let you free from his cage." "If your brother caged me, then I would not have stood here," Delilah said without any fear. She knew when she heard that she had ignored him that day, she felt fear. But in front of him, she felt nothing. Because she knew who was behind her. It was Everett, who would always be with her even if she was in danger. Maverick did not like the attitude Delilah was showing to him. Delilah passed him and started to walk. "How dare you ignore the prince? I am already another prince's woman, so I think I can do it." Maverick scoffed. "Another prince? He is a prince? He is just a beast, nothing else." Delilah's steps halted. She turned to him. "Don't say those things again." Maverick saw that she was warning him. Was it some kind of joke? He calmed himself and said, Okay. Let me talk to you. Take him to the royal palace. I think it's been a while since we brothers talked nicely with each other. We should talk and solve all the problems between us." Delilah narrowed her brows. Didn't he just call his own brother a beast? Then what happened to him so suddenly? Maverick could see her doubtful eyes. So he cleared his throat and said, I know what I said that made you not believe me. But I am just angry at him. He left us and has been staying in the forest for a long time. He still does not want to come back. Delilah remembered that Everett told her he was forced to stay in the forest. So Delilah's doubts raised against Maverick more. You are making me a fool. Maverick heard her and raised his brows. I think you have a great charm. I feel attracted to you. Delilah made a disgusting face. How can you say that? I am your brother's woman. Maverick shook his head. He cannot give you what I can. I can make you prosperous. You just have to name a thing and I will present it to you in a second. That's called power. You know who I am. I will be the king soon. Delilah thought about what Everett was planning. Is Everett planning to become the king? Suddenly many questions popped into her mind. What? Why are you thinking so much? Delilah sighed. First, I don't need your things and second, I don't want to talk to you. I know you are the crown prince. Delilah paused and looked around the passerby. She was bewildered about where Lily was and why she left her alone in the market. Delilah looked at Maverick and continued, I am leaving. Don't follow me. Delilah said but stopped by a hand. He grabbed her wrist tightly. I will shout now. Delilah muttered angrily. What? Will you create a scene here? He tightened his grip on her wrist. Yes, because you are in normal clothes. But if you tell them, they will get to know what their future king was doing with a woman. His eyes darkened. He left her hand and she massaged it. I think you are blind in love. Tell him to mark you then. Delilah was astonished. Why was everyone talking about marking? Everett said he was not able to do that. And here everyone asked her about his mark. It's his choice. If my man doesn't want to mark me then it is totally okay with me. I am happy to live with him like humans. Maverick broke out in laughter. Delilah felt uneasy with that man. He did not look like a good person at all. Do you know why he killed his mate? Do you know a single thing about him? I don't need to know. He is with me, we are happy and that's enough. Why are you talking like you are in love? Of course, I am in love with him. I told him and he accepted me. Maverick became furious. So furious that he was about to kill her without caring about the villagers. But his eyes fell on a chain on her neck. He pulled the chain and the necklace came out of her dress. He raised his brow. Nice necklace, he said and stroked it. Delilah pushed his hand from her necklace. She hid her necklace in her dress again. How can you touch like this? I can touch anywhere I want, baby. Delilah shook her head and said, he is right. You should think about yourself first. Because let me tell you one thing. If he gets angry and comes after you, you will die for sure. Are you challenging me? Take this as my advice. Delilah started to walk. She heard him behind her, do you think he is also in love with you? You are a foolish woman. Delilah ignored him and left the village market. Maverick glared at Delilah's back until she left. He wanted to kill Delilah. How dared she talk to him like that? No one had ever talked to him like that before. I thought she would be at my feet when I asked her to come to me. But it looks like this time my brother has got a strong woman, who is not into a position but a silly thing called love. Maverick laughed at himself that he even tried to make an effort to come to the village. Next time I will not come to see you but you will be in my bed. He chuckled and his mind linked to his men to come with the carriage. After some minutes, a few men came to the village market with a royal carriage. Everyone looked shocked when Maverick entered the carriage. They did not know who it was, because they would see the crown prince only at the coronation as their king. But they believed Maverick was someone very powerful since the royal carriage came to take him. Delilah walked inside the forest. She was cursing Maverick inside her mind. How cheap that man is! How can the Alpha King decide to make him the future king? I didn't even know him and he came to talk bad about my man to me. Delilah thought about how she could tell Everett about Maverick. He will get angry if I tell him about his brother. Delilah did not want to hurt Everett. These days they became close, so she did not want him to change his mood. She thought Everett would not be at home, so she could take a shower and prepare dinner for them. However, she was wrong. When she entered the wooden house, Everett was sitting on the couch while resting his elbows on his thigh. He looked at her and she stopped from stepping forward. "You are at home," she said and closed the door. "Why? Did you think I would not be at home at this time?" She was dumbfounded by his question. She shook her head. "No, I didn't mean that." She stepped towards the couch and Everett stood up. "Did you have your lunch?" she asked and smiled at him. But he was indifferent. Delilah was stunned by his grim look. What happened to him? She thought. "Where were you?" he asked. Delilah gulped. "In the hospital." "Really?" Delilah looked away from him. Did he know something? "No, I should tell him that his brother met me. I was in the village market and." He raised an eyebrow. "Everett, what happened to you?" She went close to him but was shocked when he pushed her hand and grabbed her throat. "How dare you talk to him?" He gritted his teeth. Everett in a blink of a second, her back pressed against a wooden wall. She felt pain in her back. Her throat was burning as she could not answer him. He growled at her. "Who are you?" "Abandoned her. Who are you?" Delilah was shocked by Everett's question. Everett tightened his grip more. Delilah was having breathing problems because of that. She patted his wrist. "Who sent you to me, hey?" His voice was cold and deep. Delilah felt a shiver in her body. She had never seen Everett's this behavior. He looked like he would kill her today. She shook her head as she could not let out a word. Everett glared at her. When he saw her face become colorless, he let go of her neck. Delilah slid against the wall and coughed hard. "Who sent you to me? That bastard or his father?" Delilah gathered up her breath and tried to breathe as much as she could. She looked up at him with her teary eyes. "I didn't do anything." "Who sent you?" he asked her repeatedly as if his mind went blank. "No one," she whispered as her tears rolled down her cheeks. He bent down in front of her and asked, "Where were you before you came here?" "I was in the village market," she replied and sobbed. Everett looked at her with his orange eyes. The flame was glowing inside his eyes. He was glaring at her in rage. He was in training before coming back home. A few of his men came and told him that they had seen Delilah with the crown prince. That was when his mind went blank. He waited in the wooden house for a long time but Delilah still didn't come back. He got furious. He wanted to kill both of them. But he controlled his anger and waited patiently. When she came back, he asked her where she was. And as expected, she lied to him that she was in the hospital. Now he wanted to kill her. She was with the man whom he wanted to kill for a long time. Everett grabbed her jaw. "You were always with my enemy. How could you do this? I trusted you and you broke my trust like that." Delilah shook her head. "No, I didn't break your trust. I was never with him. He came to me and started to ask some question. Shut up. Stop your nonsense. He yelled at her and she flinched. The main door opened and Everett's friends entered the house. They were huffing and looking at Everett and Delilah. Luke called Everett, but Everett did not turn his head to him. Everett, what are you doing? Jack asked. They came to them and pulled Everett up. Everett was in a daze. He stared at Delilah. Meanwhile, Delilah was in shock. The way Everett yelled at her still frightened her. She remembered what others said about Everett. He doesn't like you at all. He killed his own mate. Was he going to kill her too? He will make your fate as his mate. The woman's words echoed in her mind. Her heart shattered as she thought about how he was about to kill her a few moments ago. Luke put his hand on his shoulder, but Everett pushed the hand, which almost broke his hand. Bro, what did I do? Luke shouted. Everett was silent. He looked like a madman. Delilah came out of her thoughts by Luke's shout. She glanced at Everett's friends and stood up slowly. I didn't do anything. I was in the market when Maverick suddenly came to me and started talking. She tried to clarify everything to Everett's friends so that they could make him understand the facts. But why did he come to you? He is a crown prince. He doesn't have time to roam around the kingdom. He had never been to this village before. Then tell us, if he really doesn't know you, then why did he come and talk to you? Jack's question made her speechless. How could she say to them how much nonsense Maverick was talking to her? He was bad-mouthing Everett. Would she tell them about it? I don't know. He knows me because he saw me when I went to the palace with Everett. So he started to talk some nonsense. I even told him not to talk to me. Hearing Delilah, Everett scoffed at her. Same dialogues. This old drama. He shook his head in anger and growled aloud. That growl almost shook the whole wooden house. Delilah was an Omega. She whimpered under the growl. Her knees trembled. I didn't betray you. She sobbed. Connor broke the silence and spoke out, Delilah, why did you go to the village market from the hospital? Connor, trust me. I didn't do anything. Miss Winters told me to go with her. She told me she wanted to buy something for her friend, so she wanted me to go with her. Then why did you leave Lily on the market? Me? I didn't leave her. When we reached a stall to see a dress, Miss Winters left me there. I lost her and started to look for her. Connor shook his head. I met Lily before coming here. She told me that you were with her, but a man came to you and you left Lily there. She told me that you were looking nervous, like what if someone saw you. She even told me that you said that man, why did he come to the village? You are doing with what he told you to do. Delilah was shocked. What? Connor nodded with an upset face. I thought you were a good girl and you cared for my friend. I trusted you and always tried to cheer you, but I had never thought you were doing something behind our backs. You are with that crown prince. He set you up just like he set Everett's ex-mate. Ex-mate? Delilah glanced at Everett, who was staring outside from the window. He was controlling himself as his fist tightened. Yet, his ex-mate did the same. Maverick sent her to Everett to kill him, but she came out as his mate. However, she tried to kill Everett once and got caught by Everett. That was when he killed his mate. Jack said. Delilah did not know what to say. First, how could Lily lie? She made up everything and lied to Connor. But why? What would she get from that? Secondly, Everett's ex-mate was set up by his own brother. That was why Everett hated his brother and his mate? Delilah now understood what Maverick was doing. He tried to capture her too so that he could kill Everett through her help. Miss Winters lied to you, Connor. She has been working under me for a long time. Why would she lie to me like that? She doesn't even know us personally. No, she left me there. I didn't say those things to Maverick either. When Everett heard Maverick's name from Delilah's mouth again, he groaned. He turned around. He smashed the tea table and punched a wall beside him. Everett. Delilah ran towards him and grabbed his hand. Your hand. Everett glared at her. He sniffed the air with a furious face as if he did not like that smell coming from Delilah. Maverick tried to come closer to her, he even grabbed her wrist. All of them left his scent on Delilah. Everett was about to push Delilah's hand but stopped. Delilah saw him frowning while looking at her neck. Before she could touch her neck, he touched the chain of her necklace and the 4 clover leaves came out of her dress. Everett took a step slowly as if he did not want that. He sniffed the necklace and his eyes widened. Delilah had never seen him shocked. He took a step back. His eyes were on her necklace, which he let go immediately. He looked at her body and then at the necklace. He made a disgusting face. I can't believe he even touched this necklace. Delilah understood what he meant. She shook her head. No, Everett, whatever you are thinking, it's not like that. Everett looked at her with his cold eyes. He didn't look upset anymore. Everett's friends thought Everett would kill Delilah. Leave my house right now. Everett said to her calmly. What? Delilah was stunned. Leave my house and my forest as fast as you can. Delilah felt heartbroken. Where would I go? I didn't rent my house. Just get out. Delilah jerked in his cold voice. She glanced at Everett's friends. They had already turned their backs on her because Lily said some things as a piece of evidence against her. Everett, I don't want to go. You are my home. Everett laughed when he heard that. He smirked at her. I will kill that man soon. You are lucky enough that I am letting you go. Delilah frowned at him. How was everything going against her? How could she just leave him like that? She loved him and she told him that too. Didn't you accept me? Didn't you say that I am your Omega? Everett's expression changed. He glared at her and replied, Today I abandon you as my Omega. The wizard, today I abandon you as my Omega. Delilah was looking at Everett with her teary eyes. Abandon. This word never stopped following her throughout her whole life. People called her an abandoned Omega. But now she had become the actual abandoned Omega. Did he really not like her a little bit? Did he not trust her? Delilah lost her words. What would she say? She could not convince him to like her or love her. There was hope that he could trust her, but he crashed the hope by saying that sentence. 3 friends of Everett were silent all the time. They thought Delilah was trusted since she lived there with Everett, but Delilah broke their trust too. Delilah glanced at Everett's friends and realized that no one was supporting her at that time. From the very first day, she only talked about the beast, though I didn't harm her. All this time, she was just pretending to be naive but was actually on a mission. Looks like my brother really got a perfect person for his mission this time. Everett spoke out as he looked at his friends. She bit her lower lip as she lowered her head. Did you ever love me? Her heart was pounding. She wanted to hear yes. No, never. He replied and growled. She stepped back unknowingly. She closed her eyes and nodded. For the last time, she tried to explain. That Lily is lying. I didn't say anything like that, and about your brother, he came to talk to me. But I told him that I want to be with you, only get out. He yelled at her. She flinched and whimpered. She turned around and ran out of the main door of the wooden house. Everett stared at the door until she left. Everett, are you okay? Connor asked him. He was surprised that Everett let Delilah go that easily. Otherwise, he killed his own mate immediately a few years ago, when Safika got caught by him. That night was still a horrible night for everyone. Leave me alone for now. I will link you if I need something, he said and went to the bedroom. His friends left the house after nodding to him. Delilah was walking in the forest while crying. She did not know where to go. She at first wanted to go to the village. But then she thought if she were there, she would go back to the forest again and again. So she tried to find her way back to her pack, where she belonged. She did not know where she would live, however she could not stay there anymore. The pain in her heart was ascending. She did not know with whom to share her pain. She walked for a long time. When it was midnight, she sat under a tree. She was tired of walking so long. Her feet were hurting and she was feeling cold. Suddenly, she heard a growl. She gasped. It was Everett's growl. She looked around to see if he had come to take back his words. But he was not there. He was far away from her. His howls could be heard from where she was sitting because the whole forest was echoing his growl. Delilah rested her head on her knees and tears rolled down her cheeks. She was lost, lost in love. He misunderstood her, but that was not the only thing Delilah was thinking about. He does not even like me like that, love is far away from it. She mumbled. She did not know how she would live her life from now on. She had no one. Not a single person who she could live with. Her man abandoned her without trusting her. Delilah fell asleep and woke up in the morning. She looked around and almost forgot what happened last night. She wished it was a nightmare, but it was not. How happy she would be if he set her free the night she saw his real self for the very first time. But now she opposed that feeling. She did not want to be free from him. However, he did not love her. She stood up slowly and started to walk again. When she walked for almost a whole day, her legs were quivering. She frowned when she saw the border. Without any trees in 2 meters, it was like a line. She remembered the old man who told her about this boundary. It was an invisible boundary. Though Everett could go anywhere, it was a boundary between 2 sides of the forest. Delilah looked around and saw that side of the forest for the last time. She turned around and walked ahead as she crossed the boundary. She strolled forward. Her eyes looked lost, her face looked pale. She felt thirsty, very thirsty. Her steps quivered. She almost fell to the ground when someone held her arm. She turned to her side and saw that old man whom she had met before. She was stunned. "Grandpa? You are still here." The old man chuckled but then he frowned. "You, tell me, what are you doing here?" he asked. Delilah smiled at him sadly. Her upset face made him frown more. "What happened, child? Sit down here." He helped her to sit under a tree. "Why are you here?" he asked again. "I met him." "Who?" Delilah thought for a moment about if she could tell him about Everett. Then she felt it was okay since he was an old man. "The one everyone is afraid of, the man whom everyone called the Beast. I fell for him," she whispered. "What about him?" Delilah heard him. His voice sounded desperate. She was amazed that he was not looking sacred. It reminded her of his words. He told her that day that he was old and the beast could not do anything to him. "Grandpa, are you okay?" "I am fine." "Answer me, is he in love with you too?" "No," she whispered. She felt like crying again, but she retained herself. The old man looked stunned. "How is this possible? You are alive. If he is not in love with you, then he would have killed you a long time ago." Delilah's jaw dropped after she heard him. "You know that I could have died. You still sent me there." That time the old man nodded at her. "But why? Are you regretting going there? If you asked me this question yesterday, I would have told you that I was happy to go there. But now that he has abandoned me, I am regretting it." He gasped. "Abandoned you? Why did he abandon you?" "There was something that happened that I just could not explain to you, Grandpa." Delilah replied and rested her head against the tree. She closed her eyes as if she wanted to take some rest under the shadow of the tree. She opened her eyes and saw the old man staring at her. She looked into his pale green eyes. But all of a sudden, those pale green eyes turned into dark ones. She raised her brows when she saw the wrinkles of his face were removed by themselves. "Grandpa," she could not finish talking. Before that, the one man turned into a young man with a good-looking face with a strong body. Delilah was too shocked to let out a single word. She almost lost her breath in fear. How can it be possible? How can an old man change into a young man? That man chuckled at her reaction. "Possible? Just like you shift from your human form to the wolf form and then shift back. Just like that. That means you are not old." "I am not that old, at least." "How old are you?" "Much older than your beast, for sure." Delilah was speechless. It was so uncomfortable that she shared her pain with an old man while calling him Grandpa, but the next moment he turned out to be a young man. That man saw her confusion and said, "Let me tell you one thing. Only you saw this magic of mine." "Magic? Why did you roam here in disguise? And how did you do that?" Delilah asked as she was very curious to know. "To begin with, that was not a disguise but kind of my future self, and this is my past self. In addition, I am a wizard. Furthermore, I made potions for that. I can only drink it and use it to go back to my past self or future self. Why not your present self? I mean, why don't you show your present face?" "Well, I am stuck here. So it's kind of my paying back." "Stuck in the forest?" Delilah frowned, but then her eyes widened. "You are the wizard who is paying for his wife's doings." She could not believe it. She was with that wizard. The man nodded at her, which made her more thunderstruck. "I am that wizard. My sister talked to you, she told me." I guess what she said was true. "Indeed, he doesn't love me and almost killed me." The man shook his head. "I think it's time for you to know about everything. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.